Hello, and welcome to the Strategic Intelligence Podcast. At Global Data Strategic Intelligence, we track over 100 tech, industry, ESG, and macro themes impacting all major sectors. I'm your host, Beyza Karakoy, and today I'm joined by Zeyd Anwar, co-founder of Cobrief, a platform that provides AI-powered contract reviews for small to medium-sized businesses. Zeyd, it's great to have you on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Beyza. I'm excited to be on and thank you for having me.
So today we're diving into the world of legal tech, a rapidly growing field where technology is reshaping how legal services are delivered. Zaid, Cobrief is doing some really interesting work in this space. To kick things off, can you tell us a bit about what Cobrief does, how AI is integrated into your platform, and how businesses are using it?
Sure. So Cobrief is a company that I started recently, and it allows owner managers of small to medium-sized businesses to review their business contracts. So there are a lot of business contracts that owner managers have. They can upload it to our platform, they can click review, and they can get an analysis of the risks explained in plain English, along with the risk score. And then this helps them to decide, do I want to sign the contract? Do I want to negotiate it? Or do I want to actually speak to a lawyer and escalate this further? The idea is generally to make the law more accessible to small to medium-sized businesses who often, can't afford legal services or can't afford to even speak to a lawyer because of cost constraints or time constraints.
I mean, it's quite clear that Cobrief is providing real value to businesses using the platform. I just want to talk a bit more about the legal tech market generally. At Global Data, we recently published a report on legal tech, and in it, we take the stance that while AI and other technologies are transforming the legal sector, they're more likely to enhance lawyers' capabilities rather than replace them entirely. Given your experience, how do you see the impact of tech adoption in the legal sector? Do you think it's more about enhancing what lawyers do, or do you see more disruptive changes ahead?
Sure, that's a really good question. I think there's two sides to this. I think, in the first instance, law will definitely be enhanced by these AI tools that we've seen. And there's been, a plethora of companies that have been started over the past 2 years, which are designed to help, solicitors and lawyers, barristers in their roles, in their day-to-day jobs. And that's great. But I do think over time, as technology gets more and more advanced, we are actually going to see, businesses themselves, whether or not they've got lawyers, in-house or they have lawyers on retainer, a lot of these businesses doing the simple sort of legal footwork themselves. And this is a technological constraint, I would say right now. The AI landscape is evolving quite rapidly. So I think in the short term, we are going to see lawyers be augmented with AI, but I do think in the long term, we are going to see an actual quite dramatic and more disruptive shift where, as I say, businesses are doing a lot of the legal sort of footwork themselves and then going to a lawyer where it's particularly complicated or they need, legal insurance or they need more expert sort of input. So yeah, I think it's a distinction between short-term and long-term impacts. That's how I see it.
That makes a lot of sense. It seems like tech is definitely opening up new possibilities, but it's also a shift for an industry that has traditionally been cautious about adopting new technologies, especially when it comes to concerns around data privacy and legal accuracy. How do you think attitudes within the legal sector are evolving when it comes to embracing technology?
Yeah, definitely. I think, legal tech has been around actually for quite a few decades. But I think there's been a dramatic shift since, this AI revolution has come out. And I think even lawyers now who have traditionally, been quite skeptical of technology for, some very valid reasons. I think now they are starting to see that the landscape around them is starting to shift quite significantly. And, there are various players in the market who, are starting to sign big contracts with law firms and in-house legal departments, which, compared to other types of legal technology, I haven't really seen in the past. And I think this is really a testament to law firms and leaders within these law firms really seeing that if they don't actually adopt this technology, other law firms will, and the rest of the legal industry will, they will be left behind. So, yeah, I think it's a massive, massive shift. And I think it's a very distinctive shift compared to other legal technologies that we've seen in previous decades.
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, it's clear that attitudes are shifting, but as legal tech continues to advance, particularly with the rise of generative AI, there's another challenge that comes into play, which is the skills gap. Many legal professionals may not yet have the technical skills to fully take advantage of these new tools. How do you see the sector addressing this skills gap, especially when it comes to integrating more advanced technologies like generative AI into everyday legal practice?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I think, based off my experience, when you're training as a lawyer, you're trained basically in terms of technology to use Microsoft Word or Google Docs, which is great. But I think, that's a type of training that's sort of quite old and, it's sort of training that would suit a lawyer perhaps in the 2000s or the late 90s. Whereas I think this new generation of lawyers, I mean, already some lawyers, whether they admit it or not, are using ChatGPT, they're using a lot of other software. And I think, training as a lawyer, it will be not only about, knowing the law and how well you are at drafting and, liaising with clients, but I think a lot of it is actually going to be, can you use software in a way to enhance your productivity, enhance your practice that is beyond just using, the basic word processors like Google Docs or Microsoft Word. And I think this comes back to the value of training. I mean, law firms will have to start integrating, technology into their training, look beyond just, strictly, is this person a good lawyer in terms of the substance, but also can they use these technologies and really add value to their clients above and beyond sort of legal practice, I would say.
Do you reckon it will change legal education in any way? Like the impact it will have on future lawyers before they even actually start practicing?
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of lawyers who will now be sort of coming up in the system, they will already be used to using technology. And so a lot of legal sort of practice service providers, a lot of law firms will have to actually contend with the fact that they're already recruiting a very tech savvy generation. And so there will be an expectation, from this generation that they use the same technology in their day-to-day lives, in their, in their practice of being a lawyer. And I guess this was also sort of something for actual software companies who provide the technology to think about because, there is a whole new generation of tech savvy lawyers coming up the ranks. And it's also important that these software providers make these legal tech software products as easy as possible to use for these lawyers because, a lawyer's job is to practice the law and advise their clients and not necessarily, get to grips with complicated software. So it's a tricky balance, but I think, yeah, the onus is on law firms, but also I think software providers to really serve this new generation of lawyers who are definitely more tech savvy.
Well, thank you so much, Zeyd, for your insights. You can find the link to the Legal Tech report in the episode description. Thanks for listening. And from us in Strategic Intelligence, see you next time.